there. Thank you for joining us on another edition of Jamaica Magazine. Coming up, details on key areas to get the lion's share of the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sports financial allocation for 2021-2022. Plus, what to do if you or someone you know is battling domestic abuse. I'm Audrey Williams. The news right after some COVID-19 tips.
It's absolutely critical that we receive the vaccines. You will see hospitalizations and indeed deaths likely come down. And so there is a lot of value to be gained by getting as many vulnerables on board as possible. So tell your mothers, tell your aunts, listen out for yourselves if you're over 60, and take the vax, because the vax is what will help you to guard against the COVID virus and indeed help your relatives, your friends, those who you come in contact with for the same benefit.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Friday, March 26, 2021. More than 26,500 Jamaicans, including Prime Minister Andrew Holness and opposition leader Mark Golding, have received the first dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca coronavirus COVID-19 vaccine. This is the first of 2 doses, with the next to be administered within another 8 to 12 weeks. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dunstan Bryan, says those vaccinated, for the most part, comprise selected priority groups. They include healthcare workers, Jamaica Constabulary and Defence Force officers, and the elderly.
Of the total population, 55% of the persons vaccinated to date are in healthcare workers. The elderly, 11%, JDF and JCF are 32%, and we have 1.49% of persons that are outside of the group.
Some of the persons who were inoculated outside the priority groups were given the jab because of excess doses that were in the parish.
We have since resolved this issue, and we believe that we have cauterized this particular problem, and we now have a system in place with the call-out list where only persons within the specific groups that are being vaccinated are vaccinated at the time.
The Permanent Secretary was speaking during the weekly virtual COVID-19 Conversations press briefing on Tuesday. He said the number of vaccinations administered represents 94% of the ministry's target for the first week of the exercise and 91% for the second, ending on Tuesday. The government has set a target to inoculate 65% of the population by March 31, 2022. Meanwhile, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Bisesa McKenzie is calling on Jamaicans to adhere to the COVID-19 measures to reduce the virus reproductive rate, which is a measure of its transmission or the number of new infections generated by each case. Dr. Bisesa McKenzie noted that the virus reproductive rate is currently at 1.1, which means that each contagious person is infecting more than one other person. This is down from 1.3 in February due to restrictions in the heightened movement of persons following the Christmas season. She said younger persons within the age group 20 to 40 years who have the most positive cases and were still attending public and private gatherings are the super spreaders to the older and more vulnerable population.
Hence, the numbers that we are seeing with the 20 to 29 and the 30 to 39 having our largest numbers.
Dr. Bisesa McKenzie warns of the consequences if the virus reproductive rate continues at 1.1 to 1.2, leading to the continued rise in COVID-19 cases.
The number of hospitalizations also increase, and the number of patients with severe, moderately ill, severely ill, critically ill patients also increase. So we have to decrease movements in order to ensure that we are able to get back below the capacity of our hospitals to respond.
Dr. Bisesa McKenzie reminds persons to protect themselves from exposure to COVID-19 by adhering to the established infection prevention and control measures, including proper wearing of masks while in public and interacting with others, maintaining a distance of at least 6 feet from other persons, frequently washing and sanitizing hands, and avoiding group gatherings. In other health news, the Cabinet has approved the award of a contract to Abbott Rapid DX International for the procurement of 4,000 determined HIV test kits for the National HIV STI program. Minister of Education, Youth and Information Fable Williams says this will cost $415,527.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness estimated in 2015 that there was HIV prevalence of 1.6% among the general population.
Minister Williams was speaking at a post-cabinet press briefing on Wednesday. The goal of the National HIV STI program is to reduce the transmission of new HIV infections while mitigating the impact of HIV/AIDS on Jamaicans. We now turn to justice. There has been an increase in the clearance rate for parish courts despite the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Chief Justice Brian Sykes says in 2020 the parish courts saw 37,000 cases for both criminal and civil, and after Jamaica recorded its first case of COVID-19, the courts offered emergency services only. While speaking at this week's virtual launch of the commissioning of senior judges of the parish court, the Chief Justice said during the first quarter of 2020, from January to March, the parish court clearance rate for criminal matters was 96.47%, and for civil matters, the gross clearance rate at the end of December 2020 was 93%.
In other words, during a major crisis, such as the COVID-19, the courts have shown great resilience and have actually improved their output and productivity.
The Chief Justice credited the achievement of the court clearance rate to the commitment of the judges and court staff to the delivery of justice to Jamaicans. The court clearance rate is measured in terms of the number of cases disposed of per 100 cases. Still on justice, the ministry will be intensifying efforts to deal with what is deemed as abusive methods by some parents and guardians in disciplining their children. This comes in light of growing concerns surrounding the connection between child abuse and the deviant behaviors exhibited by young people. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck says government will be promoting the increased use of alternative dispute resolution (ADR) methods as part of measures to address the issue.
There are so many, not only anecdotal, but actual abuses of our children in the name of discipline. I think that children can be disciplined in a more humane and verbal manner rather than the harsh, punitive stick. I mean, you see children being beaten with wires, beaten with sticks. I mean, it is something that is absolutely outright assault and child abuse.
Minister Chuck also says the ministry is looking to work with the National Parenting Support Commission, NPSC, as a critical partner and going into communities to further roll out restorative justice, child diversion and mediation to address the issue of child abuse. He made the statement at a recent JIS think tank session. And finally, the Agriculture and Fisheries Ministry is advising all farmers and fishers that they are exempted from the heightened curfew orders, which will take effect tomorrow. In a release from the ministry, Minister Floyd Green says they have no intentions of impeding the farmers and fishers from carrying out their work. Last Sunday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced new curfew orders, with the measures beginning at 12 noon on Saturday and continuing until 5 a.m. on Monday, March 29. Similar orders have been imposed for the upcoming weekends until April 12. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
The Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport is investing in various programs that will boost the sector and, by extension, strengthen Jamaica's economy. Let's take a look at the plans outlined for the 2021-2022 financial year.
So I'm proud to say the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, we put our money where our mouth is.
In the 2021-2022 financial year, that money amounts to $3.64 billion. Over the next year, $1.65 billion will support Jamaicans' interest and participation in cultural activities, as well as in the identification, preservation, and display of local heritage. $678 million will support the development of the creative industries, while $558 million is for cultural protection and preservation, and $121 million will continue to boost cultural information and education.
As Minister of Sports, I'm 100% committed.
And so, $792 million will support the promotion, development, and implementation of sporting activities at the community and parish levels. In terms of sport infrastructure development and management, $302 million will support operations at Independence Park Limited, and $64 million will go towards the Trelawney Stadium. Independence Park Limited and the Trelawney Stadium are expected to earn a combined $199 million to offset their operating expenses.
We endorse the national dialogue concerning gender-based violence and support the national machinery, that is, the Bureau of Gender Affairs, in the fight to eliminate gender-based violence and promote equality, justice, and human dignity for all.
$523.69 million will bolster the development and implementation of policies as well as programs to address issues relating to gender-based violence, inequality, and discrimination.
My ministry is unrelenting to provide all women and our children with a refuge from real and pending danger.
Performance targets for 2021-2022 include growth in the number of gender focal points identified and trained, and an increase in the number of micro-businesses participating in the Women's Entrepreneurship Support Program.
There must be a concerted effort to end violence against our women across the country.
Included in the allocation is $270.46 million for the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation. Another $95.8 million will go towards the National Shelter. These are some of the ways the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport will spend its recurrent budget for the 2021-2022 fiscal year.
To properly carry out a hand rub, apply a palmful of the product in your cupped hand, covering all surfaces. Rub your hands palm to palm. Rub your right palm over the back of your left hand with interlaced fingers and vice versa. Rub your hands palm to palm with fingers interlaced. Rub the back of your fingers to opposing palms with fingers interlocked. Rotationally rub backwards and forwards the clasped fingers of your right hand in your left palm and vice versa. Once your hands are dry, they are now safe.
COVID-19 still a keep, and there are no two ways about it. There are those of us who have homemade hand sanitizers, alcohol, bleach, and all the things needed to keep our hands and surface areas clean. But quick question, where do you keep these items? Especially with the little ones being at home all day, every day because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is important that these and all other concoctions, chemicals, medication are packed away in a safe place out of the reach of children. Learn more in this upcoming feature.
Limiting our household's risk to COVID-19 has increased our storage and use of certain products, which may be harmful when misused. Disinfectants such as bleach, rubbing alcohol, vinegar, and hand sanitizers, though used increasingly to protect against the novel coronavirus COVID-19, can cause poisoning. So too the misuse of medication, dish soap and laundry detergent, toilet and drain cleaners, polishes and waxes, all-purpose cleaners, insect sprays as well as shampoos and conditioners, nail polish and nail polish removers, makeup and lotions. Once you've used sanitizers such as bleach, store in a cupboard with a lock. If items are discarded in the bin, take out the garbage promptly as fumes may build. Children should always be supervised when using soap and hand sanitizers. If you've used cleaners to sanitize children's toys, be sure to let them air dry before they are returned, and keep cleansers in their original bottles, not in food containers. Never mix household cleaners as they can cause noxious fumes. When using certain chemicals such as bleach, turn on the fan. Open doors and windows to aerate the area. And be sure to wear gloves, long-sleeve shirts, long pants, socks and shoes when using certain chemicals such as pesticides. Improper use of prescription and over-the-counter medication, multivitamins and other pharmaceuticals could result in organ damage or death. It's especially important to properly store these and other potentially harmful substances away from children's reach. Store medication in a chest. Don't share prescription medication. Never take more than the recommended dose of medication. Before administering medication, properly read labels. Store medication in its original container, and be sure to dispose unused and expired prescription drugs. A member of your household may be suffering from poisoning if he or she has burns or redness around the mouth and lips or along the hands and legs, smells of chemicals, has difficulty breathing, nausea, diarrhea or vomiting, is experiencing drowsiness or confusion, dizziness, blurred vision or headache, as well as rapid heart rate or low blood pressure. If you see these symptoms, call the police 119 numbers or the Caribbean Poison Information Network at 876-537-5564. When you make contact, be sure to have the age and sex of the person, the poison taken, and the symptoms the person is exhibiting. While you wait for help to arrive, here are some tips you can use. If the poison has been ingested, remove anything that's still in the victim's mouth. Don't induce vomiting or give the victim a drink or food unless told to do so by emergency responders. For eyes which have come in contact with poison, open and close eyes while rinsing with low-pressure water for at least 15 minutes. Victims of inhaled poison should be taken to get fresh air immediately. And those who've been exposed to poisoning on the skin, remove contaminated clothing and rinse skin for at least 15 minutes. We know these are trying times, and with children being at home throughout the day, their curious nature is increased and they go exploring. That's why it's important that as a family, we are extremely vigilant in ensuring our children are properly supervised and cleaners and medicine are stored out of their reach.
If you are a victim of domestic violence or know someone going through the ordeal, then this next feature is for you.
All that is an actual story, a story all too familiar. And well, that's a part of my story. Growing up, I've seen my father flip over the simplest of things. He would basically change from an angel to a devil in a flash. I remember this instance. My mom told me that she was coming home from work one evening because she worked very close to where he lived. she was coming home from work, and usually when you're leaving work, it's a lot of persons leaving at the same time, and she was talking to one of her co-workers and she smiled at him. He smiled back, and my father saw that, and when she went home, he was ready for her. He was like, "Oh, see, I smile at my pan the road, you smile at my pan the road." He beat her, he stripped her naked, and he chased her in front of the yard so all her co-workers could see. So all her co-workers could see her.
Domestic abuse or domestic violence is not just physical abuse. The physical abuse basically for us is the end product coming from somewhere else. So you have stalking, you have intimidation, you have threat, you have psychological abuse, the one that I'll tell you, I play on your emotions as to what I can do.
It was known to everybody that this was the type of person she was dating, this was the type of man he was. Even the security at the gate, the manager, everyone. So it's not like her life was a secret. If she could not have any friends. He was the only person she could talk to, go anywhere with. If someone even talked to her and she not acknowledging them, she would get beaten for that. The least good thing, he would flip on her.
Usually, persons who are perpetrators of domestic violence are usually men, and usually they are persons who were controlling over their intimate partners. They tend to have a high level of jealousy, and they tend to be very possessive. And as such, you find that they will have a pattern of behavior where they will always check where the partner is by various means, whether by calling the person, ask the person where they are, also want to know what they're communicating with. So are they communicating persons on email, WhatsApp, other social media platform? They also want to make sure that they know where they are at all times and that they're not interacting with other persons outside, so they tend to want to have them stay home, for example, and lose connection with their families and friends.
A lot of persons knew that my mom was being abused. Well, the type of man that my father was, everyone was afraid of him. My neighbor was afraid of him. His neighbor was afraid of him. It's like anyone who came into contact with him would get hurt because he's not a simple person. I'm not sure if it's because of his build. He's really fit, he's really tall, muscular, so he's not afraid.
As community members, we have a moral responsibility that within our homes and within our communities, once we are aware that there are instances of domestic abuse and domestic violence and we seek help, best place to go? To the police. Ask the police to intervene. Intervention can be that the police directs the victim to a counseling center, because we have partnership with churches, right? We have partnership with other organizations, Justices of the Peace, counselors.
Every time she escaped him, he would either stalk her, chase her, go to her either friend's house, wherever she went, friend's house, mother's house, cousin's house, no matter where she went, he would find her, go for her with a gun, knife, machete, whatever it may be, and she would always have to go back with him. No one, no matter how much they try to fight and help her, he would always get her back. And when she goes back with him, the beating got worse, the abuse got worse, the rape got worse, everything got worse.
Have an escape plan. Your escape plan cannot be where the perpetrator knows that you're going over to your mother's house because he's aware of where your mother lives. The escape plan cannot be, I'm going to go stay by my friend because he knows where your friends are. If it's a life-threatening abuse, that's where you go to the courts to seek a protection order or an occupation order or both.
I would say maybe around primary school. I'm not sure the exact age. I was told that there was a restraining order for between me and my father. He should not be about, I'm not sure how much feet from me. He's not allowed to be near me at all. At this time I was living with my grandmother because my mom got full custody now. They had went through court and everything and fought her way, so there was no more hiding from him. He knew where I was living now because she got custody and he had to basically step away.
The protection order will say you are not to be seen, you are to remove one party is to leave the household because of the volatility of the situation. The court may say, look here, one party must leave the household and reside elsewhere. And a lot of times it's the abuser that the court will say, look, stay somewhere else until the matter is heard, or you're not to be seen in the workplace of the person.
The abuse that my mom endured, the physical abuse and the verbal abuse that I've basically endured from my father, it has caused me to basically lock myself away from people. I'm always by myself, 90% of the time I would say. I'm always by myself. Throughout high school, I've had counseling. I was rebellious because I felt like no one loved me. I struggled in the relationship department, friendship. I have anger issues. I've learned to control it because of counseling. I had this teacher, she helped me throughout high school and university.
Counseling able to revisit what happened, able to process it in a more positive way, a more realistic way. So you don't put all the blame on yourself, but you realize that a lot of it wasn't your fault, and then help you now to, having dealt with it, to try to move on. Because a lot of persons, because they don't deal with it, they find it difficult to relate to other persons because of the fact that they are still kind of baggage of what happened to them before.
The Domestic Violence Intervention Centers, one of those facilities that were donated by the U.S. Embassy, and it's a partnership between the JCF and the U.S. Embassy, to create a facility where persons can come and speak about domestic violence and domestic abuse related issues within their home. And so it's a safe space for both victims and perpetrator. And it offers counseling to family members, to victims, also to perpetrators. We have two centers that are currently operational. One is at the Matilda's Corner Police Station. You can call the Matilda's Corner Police Station for that. The other one is at Air 5 headquarters. That's on the same compound as Constant Spring Police Station. The number is 702-5120 or 702-5121.
We also have available mental health and suicide helpline. And this helpline is a 24-hour service, which is toll-free, where a person can call. So it can be either persons calling on behalf of others that they have been exposed to domestic violence. So the helpline is toll-free and 888-NEW-LIFE, which is 888-639-5433. And the 24-hour service, 7 days per week.
If you know someone is being abused, say something, do something.
We've come to the end of the program. Thank you for making the JIS your source of information. Remember to visit our website, jis.gov.jm, and follow us on all social media platforms for more content. Also, I couldn't leave without reminding you of two things: report domestic violence and keep COVID-19 free by practicing the infection prevention and control strategies. I'm Audrey Williams. Have a great weekend.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.